That should be better. Back on record in the Worley matter. Mr. Worley is present with his counsel. The state is also present. Ladies and gentlemen, this time I have a statement to read that's been approved by both the prosecutor and the defense. This is for the members of the gallery. I've been informed by counsel that this afternoon's testimony will be graphic. There may be some individuals present who may not be prepared to hear or view this testimony. We are all subject to our emotions, and this testimony could be extremely troubling for some. In considering whether you wish to be exposed to this testimony, please remember that the court must maintain a certain decorum. I certainly do not wish to have anyone removed from the courtroom, but I will do so if it's necessary in order to preserve order. At this time, if you feel you may not be prepared to experience this testimony, I would ask that you remove yourself from the courtroom. My court security officer will advise you when this portion of the testimony has concluded. Anyone wishing to remove themselves at this time, please feel free to do so.
Ms. Roberts, we had just got finished before lunch talking about your search into the green truck, defense green truck, green dot, and his red. And I believe when you indicated you had searched his red pickup truck on July the 22nd, 2016, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Eventually on that same day, were you contacted about coming out to the area of County Road 7?
Yes, I was.
Okay, how did you arrive at this particular location?
Supervisor Jeff Cook notified me, and he stated that a volunteer group had found a possible burial site on County Road 7. They sent 2 of our agents to take a look to see if a larger amount of group needed to be there, and they were able to smell decomposing remains at the site. So they called me, and I headed in that direction.
Ma'am, I'm handing you what's been marked as exhibits 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, 142, 143, 144, 145, and 147. You identify those photographs accurately depict the area of County Road 7 between J and K as you saw it on the afternoon of July 22nd, 2016.
Yes, they do.
Ma'am, when you arrived at the body itself been discovered?
No.
Were you involved in the actual process to recover the body?
Yes, I was.
Your Honor, would move to admit and publish.
No objection, Your Honor, to either. That would be to all of those exhibits, 137 through 147. Is that correct?
That is correct. 146 has not been on.
Oh, thank you. All right. Yes, those will be admitted without objection, and the state may publish.
So, ma'am, what direction are we looking here?
That's facing west.
Facing west. So essentially, you can see corn on the right and beans on the left. And on exhibit 13, we've had on the left side it says corn and beans. Would those be the fields that are referenced in this photograph?
Yes.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit 138. Is that the same post that you could see in photograph 137?
That is.
And essentially, now you're walking would be in a westerly direction towards between the corn and the bean field.
That's correct.
And when you arrived, had that area already been, for lack of a better term, squared out the corn?
Yes.
So this is a photograph essentially facing would be due north?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. This is exhibit 139. Is that correct, ma'am?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm showing you what's marked as exhibit 140. Is this essentially you just walking closer to the the appears to be earth that had been dug up.
Yes.
Exhibit 141 this is how deep the hole was by the time you arrived. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Showing marked as exhibit 142. What is depicted in this photograph?
If you look right in the center of the burial area, there is a sock. You can see a sock there, so it's a sock-covered toe.
Ma'am, would you please feel free to come on down and just point for the jury where you are referring to a sock? And ma'am, when you had arrived at this scene, were other FBI, DCI, other law enforcement agents already present?
Yes, there are multiple agents or agencies in the area.
And when you first arrived, you indicated the body had not been found. When you would excavate this location, how is that done?
This actually, this photo was taken right after we actually continued to dig. So my supervisor at the time and another agent had dug and they smelled the odor. So when we arrived, we took a few more shovels and we found the sock-covered foot. So what we do once we find anything indicating human remains, the investigation kind of comes to a halt. We have to clear the area, clear the ground to make sure it's level. Kind of like an archaeological dig. We dig with our hands, we dig with like lawn garden shovels, and we remove layer for layer of dirt to expose the entire remains before we actually lift anything up out of the grave.
And this is would you characterize this as deep hole in your experience?
Yes. Well, once we completely removed the body, it was probably one of the deeper graves I've ever dug. There were some points where an agent was holding on to my ankles to keep me level so I could dig without falling inside the grave. So it was almost 4 feet deep once we removed the body.
And then you said you were holding your ankles. How were you positioned when you were digging?
We were on our stomachs all day digging. So slowly, tedious, just scraping and then pulling dirt up.
And in this photograph, you see these round marks here. What are those?
Those are shovel marks.
And would those be shovel marks that you and the law enforcement would have created, or you believe those are marks that were there prior to the excavation by law enforcement?
Yes, those are prior to law enforcement.
And how does law enforcement ensure that it doesn't destroy shovel marks and tool marks?
Because we're digging by hand and we're only lifting the loose soil. We don't dig into any hardened surface. We just bring up the loose dirt.
And ma'am, how would you recall who was involved in the actual recovery of the body? Which DCI agents were involved in digging?
So myself, Special Agent Dave Horn assisted, Special Agent Heather Carl assisted with the dig. I believe Special Agent Dave Hammond assisted with the dig. There were about 4 digging at a time, and then when we would need breaks, we would switch out.
And ma'am, when you remove by hand, is that dirt taken somewhere or something?
Yes, so the dirt that's removed from the grave is taken away from the burial site, not far, still in the area. It's placed on plastic tarps, and then we sift through it, just like you see on television when the miners sift. So that was any evidence. So we shake it all loose, all the dirt comes down, and we make sure we collected everything needed from the burial site.
Yes, And ma'am, do you recall how you said that the grave was almost 4 feet deep at its deepest point when it was fully excavated? Do you remember how wide and how long it was?
Yes, it was 4.5 feet in length and approximately 3 feet in width.
And the 4 feet 6 inches, was that on east and west or north and south?
The 4 and a half feet was west to east, and then the smaller dimension, the width was north to south.
So ma'am, we just indicated to you that there's a sock indicated in Exhibit 143, showing you now what marked as Exhibit 144. This is 144, because we were just at 142, this is 143. Again, is that showing the sock that you just referred to?
Yes, it is. It's in the center of the photograph and
So you indicated that once a body is found, the steps are taken to ensure that the ground is level. Is that what is depicted in Exhibit 144?
yes, at this point we rake everything, so all that broken corn is pushed aside and try to keep it level. And then we basically establish a grid, and the reason to do this is for handheld measurements. So you can see the ropes in the picture. Those are basically our level lines. All our measurements are taken from those 2 points to establish your 2-point grid system. So the one on the left is running north, that was 10 feet in length. The one on the bottom is running east to west, that is 12 feet in length. And then we attach another string and we keep it close to the ground. That's why the ground needs to be level, because we need to keep that line straight as possible. And that's how we can hand measure the depth of any item in the burial site and the bottom of the grid.
When Sierra's body was eventually taken out of the grave, was there any impressions, shoe marks on the bottom of the grave?
We didn't notice any shoe impressions.
Showing you now what's been marked as Exhibit 145. So, ma'am, what is showing in this particular photograph, 145?
Okay, so this is the point where we're removing layer by layer of dirt from her body, from the grave. You can see that she's face up. She has a yellow gag in her mouth. It's secured to her with a shoelace. And she's got straw in her hair. She's got a brassiere, like a lace-covered brassiere, handcuffs, a rope, and an adult hyphen.
In the corner of this photograph, to the bottom left-hand corner, what would be shown in that photograph?
That's her sock.
And this black item over top,
That's duct tape, so there's duct tape around her ankles. She's in the hog-tie position.
showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 147. What is shown in this photograph?
Okay, so we have cleared the dirt all the way down, so you can see the position of her body. So she's laying stomach down, head up. You can see the duct tape around her ankles. You can see that she's in a hog-tie position. So including the duct tape around her sock, she has rope. And it's holding her wrists and her ankles together.
And this is straw in there.
Yes.
And she's wearing the same white lace brassiere and handcuffs on her wrist.
That's correct.
And both her hands and feet are bound by rope. Huge, Justin. How long, man, were you at this scene on County Road 7?
We started digging around 6:45, and she was fully recovered and placed into a body bag at 10:30 at night.
Were you involved in collecting any evidence in this case after you left the grave site on July 20th?
We recovered items from her at the autopsy.
I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes as exhibits 149, 150, 151, 152, 153, 154, 155, 156, 157, 158, 159, 160, and 161. Can you describe or identify these as being photographs that were taken at the time of the autopsy and that they are actually depict the autopsy?
Yes,
And ma'am, that autopsy was on Monday, July 25th, 2016, is that correct?
that's correct.
And do you recall where it was done?
Yeah, I was at Lucas County Coroner's Office.
Do you recall who performed the autopsy?
Dr. Cynthia Beiser.
And who was anyone other than yourself present on behalf of law enforcement other than Dr. Weiss?
Yeah, Special Agent Dave Hammond assisted, and forensic biologist Emily Miller.
Move to the hearing, public hearing.
No objection to the petition and publishing. So,
So, ma'am, Exhibit 149. Just describe, as we move down the body, what is being photographed.
This photograph is actually taken by Lucas County Coroner's Office. So we know that because of the number that's in there, that's how we identify who's taking which photos. So this is Sierra lying face down. You can see that she has on that lace brassiere. There's straw attached to that right there in the center of it. Her hands are positioned behind her back. You can see the black handcuffs on her wrist and the rope tied around her wrists. There's actually a key attached to those handcuffs also.
And ma'am, is this around her neck here?
Yes, that is a rope that is keeping a gag in her mouth.
Exhibit 150, ma'am?
This is a photo of her torso area, so you can see everything we described on her hands, and then you can see that she is wearing that adult diaper. You can actually, now you can see the rope that's attached from her wrist, and then it goes down her thighs to her ankles.
Showing you Exhibit 151, ma'am.
This is the lower half of her body. You can see the rope where it attaches to her ankles. She has white cotton socks on. They have duct tape over the top of her socks, and then the rope is attached and tied around the duct tape portion.
152, ma'am.
And this is a close-up photo of what I just described. So you can see the black duct tape is actually on top of the socks, and the rope is tied to the ankles and to the duct tape.
And 153, ma'am.
And this is same photograph, just the front portion of the ankle. You can just see the knot and how it's tied.
154, ma'am.
This is another photograph of her hands and wrists. You can see in that photograph there's actually a key hanging there. It's attached to the black handcuffs with a bread bag tie.
$155, ma'am.
Okay. There's a close-up of that key and then how it's fastened to the handcuffs.
156, ma'am.
That's the straw material I was talking about, and it's stuck to that lace brassiere.
157, ma'am.
We removed the key from the handcuffs and we used it to take her handcuffs off, and that is the key.
158, ma'am.
Those are the handcuffs after we removed them from her wrists.
And what are those? What did you put the handcuffs in?
Cardboard box, and then we zip tie them down.
159, ma'am.
This is a picture of the duct tape. This is removing a layer of it, and you can see within the duct tape there's straw and hay material actually adhered to the sticky part of the duct tape.
160, ma'am.
This is the ball gag that was in her mouth. We removed it. It's actually a sumo dog toy, and then that's the rope that we removed from the neck.
And 161, ma'am.
There's a close-up photograph just showing the brand of the ball gag.
Ma'am, I'm handing you with the mark at the 170. And place it on the outside of the white box. If you could please identify this for the record.
This is the ball gag and the rope from the victim's mouth, collected at the time of autopsy on July 25th.
Could you please open that?
Scott.
Is it contained there in there?
Yes.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Could you please show that? Thank you. Any you have been marked as Exhibit 178. Placing that on the outside of the wet box. Could you identify that for the record?
These are the handcuffs that were taken from the victim's wrist at the time of the autopsy on July 25th.
Could you please open that box and verify that it's contained there?
Yes.
Could you please show those?
That's 178.
Yes.
Yes, no objection. It's 177.
No.
Okay. I had no objection. I'm sorry.
Can't take them out because they're zip tied in there, but
I'm handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 180. Putting on the outside of the brown paper bag. Could you identify that for the record?
yeah, this is contains 2 bags. Within each bag is 1 cotton sock, and it was collected at the autopsy of Sierra Jackson.
Could you please open it up and ensure that that was looked
There's 1 sock, that's correct. Yes.
180 yards.
No objection.
And the other sock is similar in color and nature.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is labeled LC9. It is a diaper material collected from the victim on July 25th.
Would you please open that and confirm what's contained there?
Yeah, that's what's in there.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection.
Could you show 175? Along these waistbands, is there a particular marking there?
Yes, it's like an M or an N design.
Thank you. And hitting with the markers, we did it 174. Could you identify that for the record?
Yes, this is the lace brassiere collected from the chest of the victim at the time of the autopsy.
If you could open it and confirm that.
Yes, this is the correct contents.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection.
Please show the jury. Your hand with the marks is Exhibit 429.
Okay, this is the tape from the victim collected at autopsy. This is the tape from the ankles.
If you would please open that up. I'm handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 177. Can you identify that?
This is item 31 in our inventory. It's the rope taken from the hands, collected from the victim at the time of autopsy.
Would you please open it?
Okay?
Is that what's contained there, ma'am?
Yes.
Would move for admittance of Exhibit 177, Your Honor.
No objection, 177.
Thank you. And do you recall what the weather was like between July 20th when you first became involved and when the body was recovered on July 22nd?
Yes, very warm. It was 94 degrees on the 22nd when we removed her from the burial site.
One moment, Your Honor.
Yes, I just had a few seconds to organize. Thank you. 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, if you want to start. That'd be fine, thank you.
I remember during the please remember all my issues.
Good afternoon, Agent Roberts.
Good afternoon.
Now, ma'am, you stated you've been with, let me turn this a bit if I may. You have a big voice, but sometimes they can't hear me. Now, Agent, you stated you've been with BCI in excess of 6 years, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you have done anywhere between 400 to 500 crime scene analysis investigations?
Yeah, about that.
Okay. Now, is that a special unit within the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the crime scene analysis?
Yes, that's correct.
You also talked about a different crime scene unit. What is the name of that unit within BCI?
I think I mentioned our SIU.
SIU unit.
Yeah, so they're our special investigative unit. They don't handle crime scene, but they're like the detectives of the agency. So they do the follow-up investigations and the interviews.
And were members of the special investigative unit present at the scene on County Road 6?
Yes.
Okay. And were they present during the search of Mr. Worley's residence?
Yes, they were.
And also at the site on County Road 7?
That's correct.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to County Road 6, the early morning hours of July 20th. You were the first BCI agent to arrive on the scene?
Yes, that's correct.
And who else arrived on the scene with you?
Special Agent Dave Horn, he was out there around 4 a.m. And then a Special Agent Supervisor, Jeff Cook, he arrived about 3:30 in the morning. And then I believe Jason Snyder, he showed up later in the day also.
So it's basically the four of you from BCI, for lack of a better term, processing, investigating the scene on County Road 6. Is that correct?
Assisting Fulton County, yes.
So Fulton County had their own members of the sheriff's office out there at that time?
That's correct.
Now, you drew this diagram here as it relates to the site on County Road 6, and you have the numbers 51.2. Is that the length from south to north or north to south of the crime scene that you investigated?
That is.
And 29.0, is that from what would be the white line, the burn line of the road to the end of the area you investigated?
That's correct, the very edge of the road.
Okay. Now, is that where the pavement ends, or?
That was right where the pavement ended.
Okay, thank you. Now, number 1 is where you found sunglasses.
Correct.
Now, you said number 4 and number 5 were pattern impressions, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you believe those to be possible footprints or shoe prints, is that correct?
It's possible, but they were very faint, so.
So you weren't able to take any impressions of those?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, you also have letters for suspected blood. You have A, B, C, D, and E. So there were 5 areas where you suspected blood.
Correct.
And did you process and seize, for lack of a better term, those areas that had suspected blood?
Yes, we collected them with a swab.
Okay. Collected them with the swab. And so you took it off. Some of them were corn stalks. You took it off the corn stalks.
That's correct.
Okay. And there was no blood found on the east side of County Road 6, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the blue headphones, those were found probably the most northern within the 51.2 feet, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you also stated that it was 755 feet from County Road T to the scene.
That's correct.
And then there was a white towel found 1,030 feet further north from the crime scene?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, you were present for the exhibits that were presented to this jury today, is that correct?
That's correct.
You were there for either the photographs or the collection of the evidence at County Road 6.
Yes.
And you were also present during the search of Mr. Worley's residence on the 21st, I believe?
That's correct.
Now, how many officers or agents of law enforcement were present during that search of Mr. Worley's residence?
Actually, inside the residence,
Or on the property?
there's quite a few. We had the main crime scene investigators doing the search, but then we had assistance from Fulton County Sheriff's Office, the man unit, the FBI was present. So there was a handful of officers.
Now, it has been described by prior witnesses as a full-fledged search. Would that be a good term to use?
Sure, yes.
So they went inside and outside of the home and all the properties, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the properties, you searched the vehicles?
Yes.
And what else did you search? What other areas?
I searched the residence, the vehicles, chicken coop, and the south section of the barn.
Now, when you searched inside the residence, who was present other than law enforcement in the residence during the search?
Mr. Worley's mother was present for part of the search until she was removed. Mr. Worley was present in and out, and he was also outside the residence being interviewed. And Mark Worley was also present.
Now, Mark Worley is Mr. Worley's brother, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if you know, he resides in the trailer which is directly west of the residence, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you go in that trailer at all, ma'am?
I did not.
Now, Mr. Worley's mother, she was present until she was removed, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who removed her, if you know?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay. Did Mr. Worley, during the search, have to tend, for lack of a better term, to his mother at any time?
He did. He'd come in and check on her.
Did he have to assist her in going to the restroom or cleaning her or anything during the search, if you know?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Did any members of law enforcement assist Mr. Worley in assisting his mother?
Yes, I believe he was accompanied by an agent.
Okay. So do you know what kind of activities Mr. Worley had to assist his mother in during the search?
And I personally don't.
Okay. You yourself didn't assist?
Right.
Okay. Now, then, you are notified to go to County Road 7, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, ma'am, one of the last questions you were asked was about the weather,
Okay.
and you described it as being very hot.
Yes.
There has been some testimony about storms coming through. Do you recall any storm activity from the moment you arrived in the early morning hours of July 20th until the late evening hours, early morning hours of July 22nd, July 23rd?
I don't remember storms, but on the 20th I went home to get some rest, so it could have been storming on the 21st, so I don't remember.
So you went home after the investigation at County Road 6?
That's correct.
Did you also go home after executing the search on Mr. Worley's property on the 21st?
I did.
Okay. So there were 2 periods of time that you went to your residence to get some rest.
That's correct.
And I think you previously stated you're the closest agent, but you're about an hour away.
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, I'd like to direct your attention to exhibits 437 and 438, and they are to your left on the judge's bench. Could you take 437, please? Now, ma'am, you've been with BCI for in excess of 6 years. Do you recognize these documents here?
Yes, these are laboratory evidence submission sheets.
And what exactly does a laboratory evidence submission sheet do?
This helps us track the evidence from whoever submitted the item of evidence to the lab. It gets its own number, and it's how the lab keeps track of the items of evidence, the results, things of that nature.
Because one of the important things is a chain of custody of any pieces of evidence. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
You just want to make sure you know where it is at all times.
True.
Now, ma'am, I would note that there are different BCI case numbers from Fulton County Sheriff's Office and also the court's exhibit list. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in this case, the number is 16-23450, correct?
That's correct.
Now, below that, it says investigating officer name, and then in this instance, it was Sergeant Matt Smithmeyer.
That's correct.
And now Major Smithmeyer is sitting to my right and to your left, right?
That's right.
Now, below it, it says submitting officer. And on page 1, you have Deputy Galbraith. Is that the officer who actually submits the evidence to BCI?
Yes.
Okay. And they also put below it certain items, which that member of law enforcement submits to BCI for analysis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, ma'am, is everything that you collect submitted to BCI for further scientific analysis?
And not always.
Who makes the final call on that?
It's usually between the investigating agency, the lab. They'll have conversations and they'll decide. Sometimes the prosecutor's involved. It's your probative pieces of evidence.
Okay. So you being an agent in excess of 6 years, you can make the call on some things that are sent for further chemical analysis, correct?
Yes.
Now on this form, I'd like you to walk through each page of the form until you find something where you are the submitting officer. And take your time, agent, please.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, that would be at the top where it says date time received, July 20th, 2016 at 1:41 p.m. Wednesday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And on that day, you forwarded for further investigation the container number 4, which was a clear bag, correct?
That's correct.
And it had one coin envelope containing a DNA standard of one Joshua Kolosinski, and also a standard from Jackson Vandenbush. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then there was also, for an elimination purposes, a standard for Mr. Jackson Vandenbush.
That's correct.
Now then, if you could turn the page, please. That's a continuation of your report. Is that correct?
Yes.
And on that page, you state that you forwarded for processing or further analysis a CD with digital images, correct?
Correct.
And item number 13 was also a CD with digital images.
That's correct.
Thank you. And who did that CD come from, if you know?
Those were my photographs. One was more likely the scene photos from County Road 6, and the secondary could have been close-ups of the impressions, the tire impressions, since those were casted.
So those were photos that you yourself took during your investigative services in these matters?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. If you could turn the page to the next time that you see your name as the submitting officer. Take your time, agent, please.
Okay.
And we are at, I will reference it by date time received as July 27, 2016 at 4:16 p.m. Wednesday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And on that day, you forwarded to your laboratory certain pieces of evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you forwarded one CAPIC evidence envelope containing swab from each sock in separate tubes, correct?
That's correct.
You also forwarded an item stated rape kit vaginal swab. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that is from Ms. Joggin. Is that correct?
Yes.
You also forwarded from the rape kit a rectal swab. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that is from Ms. Joggin. Also, you forwarded for further analysis exemplars from James Worley. Correct?
That's correct.
Now, if we could turn the page. The next item, you forwarded for laboratory analysis exemplars from Sierra Joggin,
That's correct.
duct tape from Sierra Joggin's ankles,
Correct.
swab from smooth side of duct tape from Sierra Joggin's ankles,
That's correct.
swab from sticky side of duct tape from Sierra Joggin's ankles,
Okay.
cutting from edge of duct tape,
That's correct.
socks taken from Sierra Joggin at autopsy,
That's correct.
Rape kit from Sierra Jogging at Autopsy.
That's correct.
And within that, the rape kit, I guess, would be a broad term, and then it's broken down in further details. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So within that rape kit, for further testing, is a vaginal swab,
Yep.
rectal swab.
Yes.
Rape kit are fingernails. Would that be scrapings from underneath the fingernails of Ms. Jogging?
It's actually clippings.
Clippings?
So they clip them at the coroner's office.
Okay, so the coroner actually performs that act, turns them over to you, and then you forward them to BCI for further analysis.
That's correct.
Thank you, ma'am. And rape kit L fingernails are clippings, forwarded to you, forwarded to BCI for
Yes.
further analysis. Thank you, ma'am. And is there another? Oh, you also have a blood card from. I'm sorry. You can. It's a little bit, a few pages ahead. I went ahead of myself.
Okay.
I'm at 8/4/2016, 9:34 a.m.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. You're listed as the BCI crime scene agent on
Right.
almost all of the reports.
Right.
Okay. And that's standard.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, in that report, you forwarded a blood card from Sierra Jogging from Autopsy.
That's correct.
And if you could please continue to the next page where you are the submitting officer, please.
Okay.
Are we at June 12th, 2017, 9:37 a.m.?
Yep.
And submitting officer is S.A. Megan Roberts, your married name, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you. And ma'am, in that you provided oral swabs from Special Agent David Hammond,
Correct.
oral swabs from Special Agent Larry Hootman,
Correct.
oral swabs from Special Agent Dave Horn.
Correct.
I believe that's all on that page. And then you also, it's a photocopy of a DNA stamp on the last page.
Yes, I see that.
It's a photocopy with DNA stamped from Sierra Jogging, collected at the time of autopsy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 438, which would be to your left. And whenever you're ready, ma'am, I would just like to go through, and if you could go to the page where your name is at as a submitting officer, submitting agent.
I don't see any unless I missed it.
No, you didn't. You
Okay.
didn't miss any, ma'am.
Okay.
But there are numerous other submissions to BCI from other agents or members of law enforcement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the items that we spoke about before this jury, those are the items that you personally submitted for further analysis. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
And that's just a fraction of what you collected during your investigations of Ms. Jogging's death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would it be fair to say that what the other officers also submitted, that could be a fraction of what was collected during the investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And this is a recital of everything that you personally submitted to BCI for further analysis, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time. Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Roberts, let's go back to exhibit number 437 and discuss those items that Mr. Deck pointed out to you. So starting with July 20th at 1:41 p.m.
Okay.
Why did you submit standards from Joshua Kolozinski and Jackson Vanderbush?
We needed these items for the testing of the helmet, our latent, I believe it's latent. Oh, this is for the DNA. So this was to eliminate them from the helmets itself because they collected it and they took it home with them basically.
So Mr. Vanderbush, I understand, was the person that collected it. What about Mr. Kolozinski, the victim's boyfriend?
For this one, I'm not sure what exactly he was being tested for. You'd have to ask one of the forensic biologists, but again, it says they just need a DNA standard to compare it to the items that were collected at the scene.
Right. So the point would be to eliminate them or include them as a source of DNA from, let's say, the helmet, correct?
That's correct.
And then why did you submit the discs with your photographs?
Our laboratory technicians like to have the photographs so they can see what they're looking at, see how items are oriented or things of that nature.
Okay, let's go to July 27th at 4:16 p.m.
Okay.
Okay. Why did you submit a swab from the sock? And which sock are we referring to? Socks,
This one
rather.
says, yeah, swab from each sock. So when we were at the autopsy, in addition to collecting the physical items of evidence, we swabbed them also. So we would have the two collections. So we swabbed them to look for any DNA.
So you're talking about the white socks that,
That were on her
removed from
body.
Sierra's body at the autopsy.
That's correct.
How about the vaginal swab and rectal swab from Sierra?
So those are part of the rape kit. So again, we're submitting them to look for any DNA evidence.
What about the exemplar from the defendant and the exemplar from Sierra?
We need both of their DNA standards for comparison purposes.
How about the duct tape that was removed from Sierra's body?
This says the cutting from the edge of the duct tape. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
So what we did was remove the portion where it would have been bound her with and then sealed down. We submitted just that portion to look for DNA.
And then you mentioned fingernail cuttings. What is the point of submitting those?
We want to try to get any DNA that might be under her fingernails in case she fought back, things of that nature, so they submit the fingernails, clippings.
Let's move on to August 4th at 9:34 a.m.
Okay.
Why did you submit the blood card from Sierra from the autopsy?
The blood card is your DNA standard from Sierra Joggins collected at the autopsy.
So in other words, you're drawing blood from her body.
The coroner's office does it. They place it on the card, and that's our DNA standard. It's similar to a buccal swab for a living person.
Okay. And again, that's for comparison purposes,
Correct.
correct? Okay. And then finally, June 12th, 2017 at 9:37 a.m.
Okay.
Why did you submit oral swabs from Agent Hammond, Agent Hootman, and Agent Horn?
Those are the DNA standards from our agents that were present with me on the recovery of Sierra Joggins' body. She had a male profile under her nails, so we were just making sure our agents hadn't transferred their DNA onto her body.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Ma'am, your excuse. Thank you. Can I have counsel approach, please? Mr. Hazelman, your next witness.
Statement called Hammond, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hammond. If you'd face the bailiff and be sworn, please. If you would, Mr. Hammond, please pull the microphone in front of your mouth so we can hear you testify clearly. Thank you. Mr. Hazelman.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
It's David Michael Hammond, Hammond.
And sir, what is your current position?
I'm a special agent with BCI in the Frampton unit.
And how long have you been in law enforcement?
About 25 years now.
And how long with BCI?
About 10.
Sir, what is crime scene investigation? Please explain to me.
My role really is to capture the scene, any crime scene, in as a pristine condition as possible. Our object is to freeze the scene, to photograph it, to document it, to take measurements and collect evidence so that it can be used in the laboratory to determine who might have touched it or used it or bled on it, and then to introduce that evidence into court so it can be used.
Sir, what is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree from Tipton University in Law Enforcement Administration. I have an associate's degree from Rhodes State College in Law Enforcement, and I have 2 certifications through the International Association for Identification, one in crime scene investigation and the other in blood spatter pattern examination.
And when you joined BCI or law enforcement in general, you got into the crime scene arena. Was there any on-the-job training that you may have gotten yourself?
A lot, yes.
And as part of that training in recognizing, for example, blood at a crime scene,
Can you repeat the question?
is part of your training recognition of potential blood at a crime scene?
Yes.
Did you obtain training on how to collect DNA from both objects and to obtain standards from people?
Yes, I did.
When you obtain a standard from an individual, how is that normally done?
We use sterile swabs. We use personal protection equipment, usually latex gloves or nitrile gloves. We usually ask the person to open their mouth. We ask them if they have any sores or anything that would hurt them if we used a cotton swab inside their mouth to collect cheek cells. When I collect those standards, usually what I do is I rub the inside of the cheek and gum about 7 to 8 times on this side, 7 to 8 times on this side, and then we drop it back into the little paper sleeve that the swabs come in, and then we package that as evidence. We seal it and then document what's inside.
And so when you do that, what you're creating is a known standard for an individual?
Yes, sir.
And part of your training would be also the collection of physical evidence?
Yes, sir.
How many crime scenes do you think you have processed in your career?
It would probably be in the thousands, maybe a couple thousand.
Your experience in investigating homicide cases?
I stopped counting, but I think it's probably about 120 to 140.
Yeah, if you need to, you can move the chair. The chair's not fixed. Slide that a little closer, whatever is more comfortable for you.
You said 120 to 140 homicide cases?
Approximately, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, did you become involved in the search for Sierra John?
I did.
How were you first contacted?
I was contacted by a supervisor on July the 20th, 2016. A couple other agents had already been out on the scene and had been investigating, and they knew that this was probably going to be a large-scale crime scene investigation. So I was part of the second wave of people that came in to work.
Do you recall the first thing you would have done as part of this particular investigation?
Yes.
What would that be, sir?
They sent me to Sierra Joggin's boyfriend's house. I believe his name is Joshua, and I'm gonna butcher this last name. Kowalski. Kolazinski. I apologize.
Sir, and what did you do at the Kolazinski residence?
There were 2 FBI agents that had gone to the house, and our purpose was to talk with Joshua, to look at his vehicle, his bedroom. We wanted to look for any clothing in particular that may have matched a video that he had taken while he and Sierra were riding his motorcycle and her bicycle back to her grandmother's home. During that time, I looked at a pickup truck, his motorcycle, and I looked through his bedroom.
During that search, did you find anything of particular interest?
I collected an Under Armour shirt that we believe that he was wearing that day, a pair of blue jeans. There was a truck that was parked on the property, I think that he probably used for hunting. There were a pair of coveralls in the back of that truck that had some suspected blood on it. He had told us that he had used those coveralls while deer hunting. I collected the coveralls, a sample of that blood. And then I believe there was an area on his white hunting truck that looked like it had blood on the front of it. I think it was probably a bug strike. Surprisingly, bugs can hit your car and they splatter and can have blood on the front of your vehicle. Oftentimes, I collected a standard of that from that vehicle.
And the coveralls, did you eventually test whether that was human blood on those?
I did.
It wasn't human blood, or was it other animal blood?
It was not human blood, it was animal blood.
You checked the vehicles. Did you go up to Mr. Kolazinski's room to look around?
I did.
Other than the things you had indicated in the collection of Mr. Kolazinski's clothing, anything of other investigatory interest at that location?
No, sir.
Okay, you're at the Kozinski residence, you've done these things, now where do you go?
I go to Sierra Joggin's grandmother's house where Joshua had parked his everyday truck. There was a large group of people that had gathered there. Some were searching, some were just comforting the family, and we arranged to move his truck that he drives every day to a command center at the high school where it can be examined further.
And did you happen to look into that second Kozinski vehicle at the command center?
I did.
Did anything of investigatory interest?
There was nothing that stood out to me that was that made me think that it was either part of her disappearance, or there was no blood, there was no clothing, no weapons that I could find.
And did it appear that it had recently been cleaned, or just looked normal?
It looked normal. It didn't look like it had been sanitized or cleaned up.
Did you do anything else on the 20th of July?
The evidence that we did take, the items that we had took from the home, I transported down to the Bowling Green office of BCI and secured that evidence before I went home for the day.
Did you have further involvement in the case?
I did.
Okay. Did you have involvement on the 21st of July?
I did.
Okay. What did you first do? Right there, that was that. What did you first do on would be Thursday, the 21st of July?
My day started out assisting some of the search parties look through the fields. We're checking and rechecking different areas for evidence. Later in the day, we got a tip that there was a gentleman that may be involved in this case, and I was sent along with another special agent from BCI and a couple other investigators to this gentleman's house.
Would that have been Defendant James Worley's house?
Yes, sir.
And so were you present when he was interviewed by Thomas Brokamp and Dan Van Voorhees and Jerry Watson? Were you part of that group?
Yes.
And sir, why was the crime scene guy sent with that particular group to this residence?
My role, along with that consent search, him letting us into the house, was to be a quiet observer, to look at walls that I was allowed to go into rooms or areas of the floor for areas of blood spatter, maybe a smell of bleach, maybe a piece of evidence that had just been laid out in the open that I might be able to see while the other investigators spoke with Mr. Worley.
And sir, I've put up Exhibit 11. Is that the residence to which you reported?
Yes, sir.
And sir, while you were going around this property and this gentleman was being interviewed, do you recognize that person here in court today?
I do.
Did you put him out?
The gentleman in the gray shirt and gray tie.
Record should reflect he's identified the defendant.
And sir, did you eventually take a DNA standard of the defendant?
I did.
Okay. Did you also take fingerprints?
I did.
And that would have been with the buccal swab and the method you would have explained to the jury previously?
Yes.
While your group was together, did you walk around and through various buildings on the Worley property?
We did.
Did you go into what has got this northernmost portion of the barn with the A on the roof and then B on the door?
I did.
When you walked into that particular location, did anything jump out at you?
When we walked into that part of the barn, Mr. Worley's reaction to us being in there was a little unsettling or a little alarming. One of the investigators walked closer to a grouping of hay bales and a green crate that was sitting beside the hay bales. And I can't remember which investigator it was, but he kind of lifted the lid on the green crate, and Mr. Worley got very upset with them and told him to close that, and then made us all get out rather quickly.
Did you notice anything with respect to the floor?
It looked like it had been recently raked. There were long linear lines in the dirt. It has a dirt floor. and it almost looked like someone had taken a rake and gone over the dirt to either kind of freshen it up or to kind of conceal what marks had been on the floor.
And sir, there was an audio tape where there was discussion on the burn barrel. Do you remember a burn barrel on the property?
I do.
Do you remember when you were walking around the property on the 21st, which would have been the Thursday, whether that burn barrel was on fire, out, smoldering?
I want to say that it was, but I'm not definitively sure.
Okay. When your group was talking, by your group I mean Agents Brokamp, Van Voorhees, and Losick, and yourself, when you were speaking with the defendant after you had walked through the building, where were most of those conversations?
We went into like an area that he had like a machine shop, and it would have been, there's the residence and then the first building to your right. And that,
With the TP and E line?
yes.
When you took the fingerprint and DNA standards from the defendant, do you know where those ended up?
I gave the DNA standard to Special Agent Tiffany Najmolsky. She later transported it to the London office to the best of my knowledge. And then I gave the fingerprint standards to Special Agent Jason Snyder, who took those to the Bowling Green office of BCI for the comparison work there.
And sir, everything that is to your knowledge contained within the market states Exhibit 437. When an item, first of all, do you recognize these documents?
These are our lab submissions.
So it's safe to say that when a particular item is submitted to the BCI labs in a particular case, a laboratory sheet is created documenting who returned that particular piece of evidence and the purpose of documenting both what is at the lab and who provided it to the laboratory.
Yes, sir.
So essentially a chain of custody.
Yes, sir.
So the group of your 4 investigators are conversing with the defendant in the shop. At some point, for lack of a better term, was their full-fledged search of the property.
Yes.
And did you have a role in that?
Yes, sir.
And what was your role?
My role was to kind of coordinate the search of the barn. It was going to be at the northmost part of the barn. On the diagram on the easel there, you can see a small little white garage door and then the letter A, and that was the area that I was assigned to search and document.
Were you assisted by anyone from BCI while in the North Barn?
Special Agent Brenda Butler and Special Agent Tiffany Najmolsky, and then 5 or 6 gentlemen from the man unit, I believe.
Okay. Were they essentially providing muscle to just move hay bales?
They were some strong guys, yeah, they were my muscle.
Okay. And so were you the crime scene agent who was essentially in charge of the North Barn?
I was definitely responsible for the North Barn. Yes, sir.
Okay. When you're collecting items in the North Barn, you mentioned personal protection equipment. Were you wearing such personal protection equipment at the time that you processed the North Barn?
I was.
And was also the agent who assisted you in the collection?
Yes.
And as you were searching the North Barn, what, if anything, did you do to document the condition of that area?
We photographed the area of the North Barn. We took measurements of its overall width and length. We created a drawing, anything that we could do to visually represent what we found there.
And do you recall on the 21st, approximately what time did your search of the North Barn begin?
Approximately 6 in the evening.
Okay. And do you recall when you started at 6 in the evening on the 21st, when did that search, for lack of a better term, end?
For me, it was about 4 in the morning.
It would be on Friday the 22nd?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at that point, did you go home? Did you go back to the command center?
Yeah, I made a trip to a Walmart to buy extra clothes and personal hygiene items and went back to the command center.
Okay. And did you get some rest, essentially?
I think I slept for about an hour and a half in the library with some books underneath my head as a pillow. Not real comfortable, so I got back up and went back to work.
Okay. And so you returned to do you recall what time you would have returned to the North Barn on Friday, July 27th?
I think that work officially started at like noon or 12:30. That's when people started to filter back in.
Okay. And I understand that the property was broken down into various areas, given letters to correspond. Is it accurate to say that this A on the North Barn area would then be A was the nomenclature for the North Barn?
Yes.
Agent, I'm handing you what's been marked as exhibits 183, 184, and 185. Do you recognize those terms?
These are photographs of the Worley residence.
Does that accurately depict how it was, how you found the Worley residence, particularly the North Barn area, on the 21st of July, 2016?
It does.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, 183 to 185? No objection.
Will be admitted.
Sir, could you describe to the jury what is depicted in this particular scene?
This is a photograph, and I believe it's going to be looking to the west. Your view is standing in the driveway and looking back. The first barn on the left is where Mr. Worley had a machine shop, and then to the right is the building where we described kind of the north barn. That doorway is right about where the gentleman, the investigator, is standing in the photograph.
That would be exhibit 180, 183. That's correct. And sir, do you know whose vehicles, the red truck, green truck, and vehicle to the far right?
I believe that someone told me that those belong to Mr. Worley.
And you were with investigators. Do you know these vehicles to the left?
I believe that the black car might be Tom Brokamp's car. I'm not quite sure about the vehicle in front of his.
And sir,
Sir, could we get you to speak up just a little louder, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
and sir, I'm not sure, maybe easier if we look at it on the photograph that is closer to you. On exhibit 183, sort of what goes from the driveway behind the man who's walking?
I believe that there was a set of vehicle tracks through the grass that you could see someone had driven over that area of the lawn recently.
Sir, showing us exhibit 184. What is depicted in that photograph?
That's going to be the barn, and then the white door, the white garage door at the north end of the barn, and then the vehicle tracks leading back to that area.
And showing you marked exhibit 185.
This is an additional photograph, the north end of the barn, and then the white garage door, and then the white pedestrian door.
Sir, here you go, marked 186, 187, 188, 189, and 19. Sir, do you recognize those photographs?
These are photographs of the pedestrian door at the north end of the barn on the Worley residence, or the Worley, the farm.
Okay. And does that accurately reflect the condition of that property when you saw it on July 21st, 2016?
It does.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection to the aforementioned exhibits, Your Honor.
Thank you. Be admitted.
Sir, I'm showing you what exhibit 186. On this particular photograph, what is being depicted?
This is the photograph of the pedestrian door at that north end of the barn, and you see that there's no deadbolt lock, and you can kind of notice that the window, you can see it better in another photograph, but the window and the door has been spray painted black from the inside.
Sir, 187.
This is a photograph of the locking mechanism area. You can see that there's some damage to the door, and the deadbolt mechanism is gone. It's been replaced by a piece of black duct tape from the inside.
Yes, sir. When you say handle, are you referring to the board markings below the handle and below where the deadbolt is supposed to go?
Yes, sir.
So showing you what's been marked as 188. What is depicted in that particular photograph?
This is a photograph of the dirt area, the floor of the north end of the barn.
And so do you recall what this item laying essentially in the middle of the picture is?
It was a piece of that locking mechanism from the door frame. It appeared that someone had used something to push that door in, to break the lock to get in.
Sir, 189?
It's a close-up of the door frame and then the cylinder portion of the locking mechanism.
Did it appear to you when you were there that particular item had been open or that door for very long?
I couldn't tell as far as time, but it didn't look like the door had been in disrepair for very long.
Okay, thank you. Sir, 190?
This is a photograph of the inside of the door, at the north end of the barn, and it shows that the window area of the door had been spray painted black.
Sir, at this time I'm handing you what's been marked as exhibits 191, 192, 193, 194, 195, 196, 197, 198, 199, 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, 213, 214, 215, 216, 217, 218, 219, 220, 221, 222, 223, 224, and 225. If you would just take a moment to review those, sir. Sir, do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir.
Sir, are those photographs taken of the interior of the North Barn area as you saw it when you essentially first entered on July 21st, 2016?
Yes.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor. That would be 186 through
191.
191.
191 through 225.
I'm sorry, 191 through 225. Thank you. 186 to 191 have been previously examined, correct?
That's correct.
186 to 190.
190, gotcha. Thank you.
Sir, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 191. What is depicted in this photograph, and where are you standing in relationship to the doorway?
This is right inside the door of the north end of the barn, and it's a view to the west. It's showing you was found along the north wall of the barn, a rake, scoop shovel, and then in the background you can see the bales of hay and the green crate, storage crate.
And sir, what are shown in the floor as you look?
You have to look very closely, but what you can see is those linear marks, kind of visually consistent with that metal rake being dragged across the dirt.
Thank you, sir. 192.
This is another photograph, still inside the door, the north end of the barn, and it's a little bit, the camera captures a little bit of the south wall. Again, you can see the linear marks in the dirt, and then the green crate and the position of the hay bales.
Sir, and what is shown in front of this plywood board that's on that wall to the left?
These are the linear marks. It looks like that metal rake was dragged across the floor there.
And sir, peeking out behind this board is something here, peeking out something dark. Do you recall what that is?
It's an Ozark Trails inflatable mattress.
And sir, was there any way to walk into the pedestrian door on the north barn and walk into what amounts to the southern barn, the large barn?
No, sir.
So essentially, this entire wall up between the barns?
Correct.
193, sir?
This is a photograph of the south wall of the barn area that I worked in. You can see the pieces of plywood along the walls. You can see the linear marks in the dirt, possibly from that rake, and then that piece of that Ozark Trails mattress sticking above the wood there.
194, sir.
This is the north wall of the barn area. Again, it's a picture of the rake and the shovel.
And sir, would the pedestrian door that you saw that was broke open, would that be essentially just off the screen to the right of the sledgehammer?
Yes, sir.
And sir, what is this black mark depicted on this ground square above the plywood boards in which the shovel and rake can come out?
I believe that that's a black plastic bag. I don't know if there's a better picture.
Sir, we're looking at 195. What is depicted in this particular photograph? What are you trying to depict?
This is the west end of that same barn area. What you'll notice is that the hay bales have been kind of stacked up in the shape of a U. There's an opening at the end that's closest to us in the photograph, and then the green storage crate right there in front of the hay bales.
And is this the crate you said that Mr. Worley got upset when someone...
Yes.
And so what are these canisters that are showing?
I believe that those were bug foggers, some type of an insect repellent.
Sir, 196.
This is a photograph of the north wall. It's just going to be a little bit to the left or to the west of one of the pictures there with the scoop shovel and the rake.
And is this is duct tape on the walls here?
It's definitely something black. It's either black plastic or duct tape.
Okay. 197.
This is a photograph of the green crate that was located in front of the hay bales.
And this also just again show a picture of the bug fogger.
Yes, sir.
198, sir.
This is a view down the north wall of the barn. It's looking to the west, and it just shows the opening between the hay bales and that north wall.
199.
This is a view into the hay bales. Where this photograph was taken was standing right next to that green crate. So if you imagine that you walked into the barn, stood right in front of that green crate, and looked into the bale of hay, you would see that opening in that center of the hay bales there.
Sir, 200.
Again, another photograph from the same relative position. It just shows it at a different elevation, that opening in the center of the hay bales.
And so this gray line at the top of the hay bale towards the rear of the north arms, what would that mean?
It's a box fan.
And on the right-hand side, is that apparently the aluminum ladder?
Yes, sir.
201.
We have kind of moved that green storage crate out of the photograph to photograph what was found underneath it and behind it. What you're looking at there, the first little yellow placard, is something that I placed in the scene. Right beside it is a empty water bottle, Kroger brand. And then right behind it, you'll see another yellow placard and then a roll of black Gorilla duct tape.
Is that by placard 2A2?
Yes, sir.
Exhibit 202.
What you're seeing there is that roll of black Gorilla duct tape from the previous photograph.
Sir, 203.
If you remember when we showed you the picture of the south wall of the barn, there was a piece of plywood and then the Ozark Trail, the green air mattress, was kind of sticking up above it. If you imagine, I'm taking a photograph down behind that piece of plywood. There was a motorcycle visor, like a sun shield, that we found right behind that piece of plywood. It's like a snap-on. Snapping onto a motorcycle helmet.
That's the motorcycle visor you were referring to, sir?
Yes. Yes, sir.
204.
This is a photograph of that same motorcycle visor, just from a different angle, looking to the west.
205.
This is a photograph, just a close-up photograph once we've taken the piece of plywood away of that motorcycle visor.
Did you get that motorcycle visor in placard 28-3?
Yes, sir.
Sir, 206, what is it taking in that?
This is a close-up of that motorcycle visor, and it's tough to tell, but right in the center, there is the letters H, J, C, kind of molded into the plastic of that visor.
Sir, 207.
This is a photograph of the area where the bales of hay were, that we've taken those out now, and it shows you that there are pallets beneath those bales of hay.
Sir, what is running through the bales? The bales are removed, the bales and bags. What is this like?
It was a piece of white cloth cord. It almost looked like a clothesline type of cord.
And this appears to be one of the bug callers you had identified previously?
Yes, sir.
And what is this black bag with the greenish blue sticking on the side?
It's a black garbage bag that was filled with disposable adult diapers.
208, sir?
It's a close-up photograph of the black plastic bag with the adult diapers inside.
And 209?
We've taken that black plastic bag outside to take better photographs of it, and then we've removed a few of those adult diapers. You'll see them in the top left corner there in front of the hay bales. Just shows what was inside of that black garbage bag.
And you gave it number 2-86?
Yes, sir.
210, sir?
That's a photograph of that white cord that we found on top of the pallets.
And 211?
A close-up of that white cord.
212, sir?
This is a photograph of the west end of the barn area. What you're looking at is the area where the hay bales were and the pallets had been. All of those have been removed. And in the center of the photograph, you see a piece of plywood that's kind of half covered with hay or straw, and you can see a bunch of holes that have been drilled into that plywood.
213, sir?
We've removed some of that straw and hay to take a better picture of that piece of plywood.
Well, what is this orange thing making through the photograph?
It's an extension cord. It was pushed through that south wall of the barn into the north end.
214, sir?
This is a photograph of the underside of that plywood. It just shows that whoever had put it there had drilled about 20 holes in the piece of plywood.
215?
What you're looking at is underneath that plywood with the 20 holes, there was a portion of the floor that had been dug out, and what you're looking at is a chest freezer that had been stuck into the ground and covered with the plywood.
And this is at the top of this square is a metal hook. Do you know what that was, sir?
That was a tie strap, something that you would tie something down in the back of a truck so it doesn't blow out. One of those ratcheting straps.
216, sir?
This is a photograph, the same area, and it just better depicts those tie straps and the ratcheting portion of them.
217, sir?
This is the interior of the freezer. The freezer had a door that lifted, and the freezer had been lined with carpet, and that just shows the view into the freezer from above.
And is this straw at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
And is it wet inside?
It was wet.
It was wet inside?
Yes, sir.
218. Describe that, sir.
This is a photograph of the sunken freezer in the floor of the barn. You can see the ratcheting strap off to the right.
219, sir?
That is a yellow and black box knife that we found in the southwest corner of the barn.
220.
This is a photograph that depicts the freezer with the door shut, and over to the left, I believe that yellow placard is the area that we found the box knife.
So the back is yellow, more blurry item.
Yes, sir.
Sir, 221.
This is a photograph of the north wall of the barn in the west corner, and what you'll see is some metal loops. The loops have been put through like an eye hook and one of the rafters, and the piece of metal comes down and then it forms another loop where something could potentially be tied to that loop.
222, sir.
This is an area of the south wall of the barn. What you're looking at is one of our measuring sticks for height, and then you see the white sticker on the wall, and right in that area is an area of suspected blood that we found that we would end up swabbing and collecting as evidence.
223, sir.
This is a close-up of that area. Just shows that it was about 33 inches above the ground.
And you mentioned the trail mattress was inflated when you saw it. Was it eventually deflated when collected?
It was.
I'm showing you, sir, what's been marked as 224.
This is a picture of a portion of that inflated mattress, or the inflatable mattress. This is probably in a stage where we were taking the air out and trying to get it into a bag to preserve evidence.
And sir, 225.
The same mattress in the process of deflating it.
Sir, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as exhibits. 226, 227, 228, 229, 230, 231, 232, 233, 234, 235, 236, 237, 238, 239, 240, 241, 242, 243, 244, 245, 246, 247, 248, 249, 250, 251, 252, 253, 254, and 255. Sir, do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
Okay, is it accurate to say that they depict the green crate, its contents, and other items that were removed from the north barn?
That's correct.
And this would be as they appeared back on July 21st, 2016?
Yes, sir.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection.
Items will be admitted.
Sir, we'll start with Exhibit 226.
This is a photograph of the green crate from the north end of the barn, and we moved it outside so that way we could process the items of evidence a little easier.
227.
This is an overall photograph of the contents of the crate as we found them. One of the first photographs that we took as we opened the crate.
Sir, we'll just start maybe from left to right. There's a white item in the left-hand corner of the crate. What do you recall what that item was?
I believe that might be like a roll of toilet paper.
Okay. And essentially beneath that,
There were some disposable diapers in the crate. I know that there was a roll of toilet paper in that area close to the bottom.
and so here appears to be a bag with some black items and locks. Do you recall those?
Yes.
What was in that bag, sir?
I believe that we're going to see them later on, but there was like some bondage, like bondage clothing, leather and straps and those types of items.
So this brown item that's essentially at the bottom of the crate.
It was a blanket.
To the right, Sir, what is this white tubular thing that appears to be inside of it?
It looks like a roll of rope or like that clothesline cord.
Okay. Sir, the white item is the rear behind the clothesline rope.
I believe that those are like some latex gloves.
Okay. So, sir, here, this pink item sticking out.
I believe that's a set of like underwear.
Okay. And sir, all the way down here in the right-hand corner.
A piece of duct tape.
Showing you, sir, 228. Is this essentially a closer-up version of what would be if we're looking at the left-hand side of the crate?
Yeah, it's a little helpful. I think I misidentified the disposable diaper as, if you go down a little bit right in there in that corner, it's a set of rubber gloves.
The rubber gloves, is this rubber gloves?
Yes.
Disposable diaper?
Yes, sir.
And this is, again, that bag of what's called bondage restraints?
Yes.
And so you got bags that got writing on them. Do you recall what was in the bags with writing on them?
They were a lot of the, there were a lot of bags that were sealed, and they contained different items like pantyhose or thongs, or one of them said like boy shorts, those types of things. So it was like prepackaged underwear or lingerie or items like that. In those cases, as we encountered those items, one thing that I was concerned about was contamination. I didn't want to necessarily open those bags up and then expose them to our DNA or other people's DNA. So a lot of those items didn't per se get opened and inspected. They were just packaged as they were.
Okay. Sir, 229?
This is a photograph of the other end. You can see the gray piece of duct tape on the far right corner.
Okay.
And then again, the pink underwear with the black belt.
Okay.
And then the cordage there.
And what could you see on top of the underwear?
I think that those are latex gloves.
And behind the underwear on both sides?
There's just enough clear. On the top left, there's a set of rubber gloves right underneath the board. And can you point to the other area where you want?
These two items. Do you recall what those were?
I can't tell from the photograph. There's too much glare.
Okay. So 230.
This is a photograph of one of the bags that we located inside of that green crate, and it has a black mask, and then again the straps and hooks, like bondage type material.
Sir, 231.
This is a photograph of the pink underwear with the black belt. There in the crotch area, you can see an area of red-brown staining. We did field test that, and it was presumptive positive for blood. So we ended up collecting that pink pair of underwear, and then we collected a standard of the blood from the crotch area of the underwear.
So what is down here in the left-hand corner of that photograph?
That is a sandwich.
So there was a sandwich in the crate.
There was.
Did it appear that that sandwich had been there very long?
It hadn't. The one thing that I'll tell you, it was had meat and peppercorn and obviously bread. But all 3 days that we worked in that area, it was 90 plus degrees outside, and that sandwich did not look like it was molding, or it still looked fairly fresh.
Certainly, you got something that says Daisy Dukes in a bag, and behind that is the white
Disposable diapers.
And to the right of the pink underwear is that, again, the duct tape?
Yes, sir.
Those are cups?
Yes.
Is that just a better picture of the sandwich that was otherwise cut off?
Yes, sir.
And with rubber gloves, white gloves,
Yeah.
gloves to the right.
Yes, sir.
And here are the adult diapers beneath those.
Yes, sir.
And again, the clothesline.
Yes.
Exhibit 233, sir.
This is an up-close photograph of the pink underwear with the black belt, and then again, the red-brown stain that we tested for presumptive source of blood.
And sir, could you read the number you gave?
2A 11.1.
And sir, if you would, it may be easier for you to read, if you come down and read, what is on this tag?
Rigid interpretations, size small, made in USA.
Thanks. Showing what's been marked as Exhibit 234.
This is an additional photograph of the underwear with the black belt. Again, those are the underwear that had the red stain inside of them. Just a different view of it.
So essentially, so you can see what the front looked like.
Yes, sir.
And as you started removing things from the crate, would you document essentially as you went down what was removed, how you found the next layer?
Yes.
Exhibit 235. So I don't see any pink photo work, but that would have been taken after you had removed it from the fire photograph to photograph it.
Correct.
Okay. The same general items as shown before, essentially just minus the pink underwear.
Correct.
Item 236, sir.
This is a close-up view or a close-up photograph of the gray duct tape that we collected from the green crate.
And so what is here, the lower left corner of the duct tape?
There's some type of like a dirt smudge,
Okay.
and then you'll see pieces of hay and straw along the tape as well.
And sir, is this facing out, is that the sticky side of the tape?
That is the sticky side, sir.
237.
The same piece of duct tape, just a closer view.
Sir, did that duct tape appear to have any hair?
I did.
That hair? So 238.
Like I had previously testified, there were a bunch of clear plastic baggies that had labels on them. This is a collection of those items: lace bra and panties, lace dress, Daisy Dukes, white beach dress, three-piece outfit, white romper, lace panties, red skirt, black, some type of black dress.
Here, say, mini dress?
Mini dress, okay.
239.
This is a photograph of some additional items that had been prepackaged. Daisy Dukes, lace dress and thong, leggings, thongs, tube mask, some socks, and I think that top left is bikini.
240, sir.
This is getting closer to the bottom of the crate. You can see some brown rope.
Center?
Correct. There's an Ozark trail, like a bag that went to the mattress that we located. And then a disposable diaper and some clothesline.
That would be to the right, or to the left of the picture?
Yes, sir.
And next to the clothesline, leaning up against it.
Some latex gloves.
Okay. 241, sir.
This is a photograph of some additional prepackaged items, and then some of the brown rope, and then the clothesline rope. Pink lace teddy. One of the bags had like personal hygiene items, a toothbrush, gum, toothpaste. One of the bags said "Go Baby." I'm not sure what those items were, and then leggings.
$242.
These are additional prepackaged items from that same crate. One was a romper. To the right is a teddy, and then to the bottom left are slashed leggings. That's how they were at least identified.
243, sir.
This was a bag that we located in the bottom. It contained a prepackaged bag, said bikini bottoms on it, some latex glove. To the right, there was a pink sex toy and then some disposable diapers.
244, sir?
Again, the same picture of that same bag and the same contents.
And what appears to be essentially behind the bikini bottoms between the sexes?
I believe that's a pair of socks, white socks.
245?
This is a photograph of those items taken out of that black bag. It just shows there was some mosquito netting in there. The white socks, the latex gloves, the bikini bottoms, the pink sex toy, pair of like American flag Daisy Dukes, and the disposable diapers.
And you had that marked as 2A-11.5?
Yes, sir.
So 246?
Again, these are prepackaged items from that green crate. Lace thongs, leggings, hot shorts, Go Baby, and I believe leggings.
247, sir.
These are additional like prepackaged items. There was one of them was a stretch lace. Badoo is how I was told it was pronounced. Something that girls wear.
And where would they wear that, sir?
I think it's worn to cover the upper chest.
And sir, all the things we've been talking about, and all the bags wandering, did all those come out of the green crate?
Yes.
$248, sir.
This was a black Halloween type mask. The front of the mask is to the left. Kind of has a ring around it. It would put like basically a black mesh over the front of the face.
249?
This was a black bag that was found in the bottom of the crate. And you'll see a hose that was an air pump for the mattress, and beneath it was that brown blanket.
To the left?
Disposable diapers,
Just the upper right corner.
latex gloves.
250, sir.
Additional items from the crate, boy shorts, beach shorts, fishnet, a belt.
251?
The brown blanket from the bottom of the crate.
252?
This would have been the bottom of the crate. There's an air hose for the mattress, a roll of black electrical tape, some Band-Aids, and a blue strap for one of those ratcheting strap devices.
And also?
Latex glove.
253, sir.
The other side of the crate, a roll of toilet paper, looks like some baby wipe container, a disposable diaper, some latex gloves, and again the air pump for the mattress.
And this larger white item in the left-hand corner?
I think that's a roll of paper towels.
$254, sir.
This is a photograph of the north end of the barn, and it just shows the state of the barn with without any of the bales of hay or the pallets, with all of those items removed.
And 255, sir.
This is the freezer that was sunk into the ground at the west end of the barn.
Sir, did you create a diagram of what was inside the north barn
I did.
to show its relative position to the other items contained therein?
I did.
So I'm showing you what's been marked as Space Exhibit 256. Could you identify this to the jury?
This is a diagram that I created. It visually depicts the locations of the items of evidence that we located inside the north end of the barn, their approximate locations, and then the corresponding placards that we use to identify the pieces of evidence.
And was this made close in time to your search of the North Barn?
It was.
And does it accurately depict as the North Barn was when you saw it?
Yes.
Move to admit.
No objection.
Will be admitted.
Sir, if you would just be so kind as to perhaps swing that arm out and just run the jury through where everything is shown in comparison to the door.
Okay. This, again, north end of the barn, you would walk into the door right there in the lower right-hand corner. And as you walk in, there's the rake and then the shovel. This is the area where there were marks in the dirt. On this side, we located like a broken bolt, the motorcycle visor, and then the Ozark Trail mattress is the green item there. There were additional items of evidence that we collected as a precaution. One was a yellow rope, a pipe, a chain. We talked about a red-brown stain that we tested for blood on that south wall. That's where that was located. This is the relative positioning of the bales of the hay. The box fan, where we located it. The orange extension cord that went along the back wall. The yellow box knife. There was a small little lantern that was in the back, like a battery-operated lantern that we found at the back of the barn. This is where the buried freezer was at. I put this in to depict where the pallets were covered, but obviously the bales of hay are going to be over top of it. We located the garbage bag with the diapers. We talked about the metal hanging loops that were extended down from the rafters. They were located on that north wall there. The roll of Gorilla duct tape and the water bottle. And then the green crate itself that we took outside and removed all of those items from.
Thanks. Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.